Hey, Christina here with Frequency Fridays. Welcome back. And so we are in our brain series. Today we're going to be talking about the mind. Now, what's the difference between the brain and the mind? So, again, let's start with the smallest part of the brain. Neurons, billions of these, create the structure of the brain. And these are our major electrical cells that comprise the white matter and the gray matter of the brain. So collectively, billions of the neurons will give us this physical structure of the brain. And I'm super excited for this dissection because I'm going to be able to know what I'm looking at when I do the dissection. But between the white matter and the gray matter, I've come to learn that the gray matter is the soma, is the neuron soma. That's where all of them are located. And so again, for those of you who like visuals, the soma is the body of the cell. And then we've got the axon. And this is where the white matter lives. It's a bunch of axons together. And so the significance about that is, all of the messaging is coming through the axon and exiting out of the axon terminal. And so this is, this is busyness of electrical signals being sent throughout the brain, the neural network. So I thought it was super interesting to find out that the gray matter is the cell bodies, pretty much isolated into one spot. And the white matter is the axons pretty much isolated to one spot. So we know that each cell has a different function, so they're clumped together according to their function within the brain. That creates the lobes. And we'll get into the structures and the functions of the brain next week. But isn't that interesting? I love to learn that. And so I'm excited to be able to know what I'm looking at when I do this dissection. And again, nobody has let me know if you want to do the dissection with me. I would love to share the link with you. So please drop a comment, ask for the link. And I'll shoot you the link so that you can order your brain and we can do it together. I would love that. All right, so back to the lesson. So what is the mind, right? You got the brain, you got the physical structure of a brain. But what is the mind? And so the mind is created from all of the energy that emanates from the brain. This is my personal understanding from my studies and just my awareness to date. So don't shoot the messenger. This is my understanding. I might not be 100% right, so please always take what resonates, leave what doesn't, because I am not a scientist by trade. So the mind, I believe, is the energy field that is created from the brain performing its function. And because we're made of the same stuff, right? But we have these quirks. We're very individualized at the same time. So every energy field is going to be extremely different, but made of the same thing. I hope that makes great sense to you. So, I looked up the definition of consciousness. What is consciousness? And it is the knowledge of something, which, breaks down to, you could use the word awareness, or you can use the word perception. I remember raising my children, and when they left my house, I would always remind them to be aware of their surroundings, like understand what's going on around you. your eyes be open to what's going on around you. Be aware. Use your mind, in other words, is what I was telling them. But we're multi-dimensional, we're multifaceted beings. So is the word consciousness. So another definition for consciousness is a person's moral or emotional nature or sense of identity. Which you can also, synonyms for that definition for the word of consciousness was essence, soul, spirit, individuality, and subconscious. I find that to be interesting as well. When we're talking about how we're all made of the same stuff, but we're all very unique and individual, I love how the word consciousness actually pulls that into definition. So, I often, am beginning to wonder, like, who sat down and made up definitions for the words? Like, whose job is that? And where did they get that information from? But these are the three that resonated with me the most for the word consciousness. And I love how it's talking about the emotional nature or sense of identity. So we're going to get more into that when we talk about the amygdala hijack, but more so when we talk about the limbic system, the emotional nature and how that ties in with the functions of the brain. This series is really blowing my mind about the intricacy of the human being, the complexity that we were designed under, the complexity of how we operate, yet we take all of those complexities for granted. So I'm just in awe and wonder more and more as I, dig into the lesson of self-mastery. Like, who am I and what am I made of? It's been such an enlightening journey. Okay, and then lastly, for the definition of consciousness, we've got everything that exists. Other words for that are existence, creation, and life. And so that brings me to a visual of, every person has the brain inside of their skull, and the activity of that brain is very unique to the individual according to what they've experienced in their life, and what cellular memory it has. What are the memories of their cellular wisdom that makes up the individual person, that makes up the spirit, the essence, and the soul. And so you've got the individual aspect, but then you've got everything that exists. And so when we think about the neural network and we think about how one specific brain functions, like electrical impulses are moving constantly, the brain uses up a lot of energy and as it communicates and maintains the structure of the human being or the functions of the body, right? But everything that exists, we're just one piece to the puzzle. We're one actually gigantic cell. I mean, you can just think about yourself as one neuron, right? And think about your family members as other neurons. There's a connection between us as well. And we talked about action potential, right? And how our thoughts generate electricity. So let me just give you an example. That probably would be way better, right? So there was a time I was in Mexico, And I kept seeing this snack that I really was curious about. And I was like, I wonder what that tastes like. But it was a giant bag, and I didn't want that much. I didn't want to purchase a bag of this snack, but I was really curious about what the snack tasted like. And so I just remember thinking about that. So now I can connect the dots, you know, when we take it back to action potential. There was some action potential popping off for me about this snack. And so short time had passed, and I'm walking down the street, and this little youngster, you know, the little kids will walk around and they sell stuff. And here he comes with this big old bag of the snack. And they're always trying to get you to buy something. And I had already said I didn't want to buy it. So here comes the little boy, and he hands me a bag. And I was like, no, thank you. You know, I don't want to buy it. And he was very persistent and had a little bit of an attitude that he's giving me this bag of snack. Now, I could see the frustration in him, you know, and I related it to the fact that, you know, he's probably thinking about how he's giving away money. He doesn't have money to give away. But whatever inside of him compelled him to deliver that snack to me free of charge blew my mind. Because I know this little boy had no idea that I wanted to taste that snack. And I know he didn't know that I didn't want to buy the snack. So, because of this little boy listening to his cellular intelligence, I gave that boy way more money than the snack was worth. Because for one, I was proud of him for listening. Because it let me know that everything is connected in the existence and the creation of life. We're all tapped into one grand circuit board, for lack of a better terminology. We're all tapped into the circuit board. And that experience blew my mind. But I actually love that I'm able to connect the dots, right? Scientifically, like my action potential was popping. So, saying that to say, you know, use your action potential. You know, I did not use it on purpose. But the point of this series, the point of this brain series is to learn how to use our mind as a tool. And I don't have all of the answers. I am on this journey with you, but this is where we're at. This is where I'm at. So, and then I just want to contrast a brain. You know, the physical brain. This brain is an example of a brain that's on anxiety. So I don't know if it's true, if this is just a random symbolic gesture, but you know, the size difference between these two brains, you know, caught my attention. And I was like, well, did I buy a mini brain? I didn't realize I bought a mini brain. I thought they were going to be the same size. But I was like, well, maybe the brain shrinks and loses some of its capacity when it's in an anxious mode. So for any of you out there who actually might know the answer to that question, I would love to know your thoughts and your wisdom there. Is that true? Does your brain actually shrink when it is in a state of anxiety? But we know that the brain can't function at its optimal state when it is in the mode of anxiety. So I just want to, you know, put that out there because there is a lot going on in the world. And I want all of our brains to be able to operate at its highest potential. Hence this brain series. That is why we're doing this. And I hope that this lesson brought you some value. I hope that you know that your brain is one of the most powerful tools you have. And God loves us. He really set us up for success. I believe. But there's been many things, many situations, many scenarios that have caused us to lose the power of our brain, which equates to a powerful mind. It is my hope that this conversation about the mind empowers you, enlightens you, and reminds you that there is hope for our future. And there are plans for us to prosper, not to be harmed. All right? There we go. I shall see you next week. Thank you for joining me. Take care.